My name is Jefferson, and I am 29 years old now. But 11 years ago, my high school graduation became the day my family abandoned me. While other parents beamed with pride, mine called me their ugly graduate and compared me to my perfect sister Audrey. That night, they gave me an ultimatum about my appearance. And when I refused, they disowned me completely. I went from sleeping in my car to owning 3 successful businesses. Before I share how I transformed my life after being thrown away by the people who should have loved me unconditionally, let me know where you are watching from and hit subscribe if you have ever felt rejected by family. I grew up in an upper-middle-class neighborhood in Connecticut, in a large colonial-style house with perfectly manicured lawns and a swimming pool in the backyard. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family, but appearances were everything to my parents, Harold and Diana. They were socialites who hosted dinner parties every weekend where they paraded their children around like trophies. My sister Audrey was their prized possession. She was 2 years older than me, naturally beautiful with long blonde hair, clear skin, and the kind of symmetrical features that made people stop and stare. Beyond her looks, she excelled academically, was the captain of the debate team, and seemed to make friends effortlessly. My parents never missed an opportunity to showcase her achievements to their friends. Then there was me. I was not what you would call conventionally attractive. I had struggled with moderate acne since I was 13. My features were asymmetrical, and I had a slightly larger nose that my father regularly suggested I should get surgically fixed one day. While I was not unattractive in a family obsessed with physical perfection, I was considered the odd one out. Jefferson, why can you not clear up that skin before the Williamsons come over? My mother would ask, applying concealer to my face. Before guests arrived. Your sister never had these problems. What made it worse was that I was actually quite intelligent. I maintained a 4.0 GPA throughout high school. Even taking several advanced placement classes, I had a natural talent for photography and computer programming, teaching myself coding languages when I was just 14. But my achievements were always overshadowed by my physical appearance. I remember when I won first place in a regional programming competition during my sophomore year. I came home excited to share the news carrying a sizable trophy. That is great, son, my father said with a quick glance up from his newspaper. But did you have to wear that shirt in the competition photo? Your face looks even more problematic with that color. My mother simply asked if I could keep the trophy in my room rather than displaying it in the living room where they kept all of Audrey's awards. It does not match our decor, she explained. But I knew the real reason was that they did not want their friends to see it when they visited. High school was challenging socially as well. I was not bullied exactly, but I existed in that gray area of not being popular, but not being a complete outcast either. I found my tribe in the computer club and photography group, making a few close friends who valued me for my skills and personality rather than my appearance. Tyler Jenkins became my best friend in sophomore year when we were paired for a science project. He was one of the few people who came to our house regularly and witnessed how my parents treated me. He came from a warm, loving family who often invited me for dinner, showing me what unconditional acceptance looked like. Your parents are missing out on knowing how awesome you really are. Tyler told me once after witnessing my father make a particularly cutting remark about my appearance at a school event. Despite everything, I tried to maintain hope that one day my parents would see beyond my physical appearance and value me for who I truly was. I focused on my education, believing that academic success might finally earn their respect. I applied to several prestigious colleges for computer science programs and was accepted to most of them, including my dream school on the West Coast. I thought things might finally change when I graduated high school with honors. I was wrong in ways I could never have imagined. June 12th was supposed to be one of the proudest days of my life. I had worked incredibly hard to graduate with honors, ranking third in my class of 300 students. The morning of graduation, I woke up feeling a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Part of me hoped that my academic achievement would finally make my parents proud, while another part braced for inevitable disappointment. The ceremony was held in the school auditorium, decorated with blue and gold banners and flowers. I sat with the other honor students in the front row, occasionally glancing back to see my family. My parents and Audrey sat stiffly in their designer clothes, looking more like they were attending a business meeting than a celebration. When the principal called my name, announcing my honors status and scholarship awards, I walked across the stage, with my head held high. There was a moment, just a brief flash, when I thought I saw pride in my father's eyes as he applauded politely. It gave me hope that perhaps today would be different. After the ceremony, we gathered outside for photos. My mother immediately started fussing with my gown and hair. "Jefferson, could you not have gotten a haircut before today? And those shoes with your gown." "Really?" she muttered, as she positioned me for photos, making sure my acne scars were turned away from the camera as much as possible. My father had arranged for us to celebrate at Thornfield, the most expensive restaurant in town. It was the same place they had taken Audrey after her graduation 2 years prior. I remember feeling a small spark of optimism that they were treating my graduation with the same importance as hers. The restaurant was elegant with crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths. We were seated at a table near the window, overlooking the garden. My parents ordered champagne, even allowing Audrey and me a glass each since it was a special occasion. The first hour passed pleasantly enough. We discussed college plans, and I shared my excitement about the computer science program I would be entering in the fall. My parents seemed distracted but not overtly critical, which I took as a positive sign. It was during dessert that everything changed. My father, now on his third glass of champagne, stood up and raised his glass for a toast. I felt a flutter of anticipation, hoping for words of encouragement or pride. "To Audrey," he began, "who graduated with honors and beauty, and has made us proud every day of her life." He then turned to me, his smile tightening. "And to Jefferson, our ugly graduate, who at least managed to get good grades despite not inheriting our good looks. Maybe someday you will find someone who can see past your appearance." The restaurant seemed to go silent around us. I sat frozen, my dessert fork suspended midair, unable to process what I had just heard. Had my father really called me his ugly graduate in public during what should have been a celebration of my achievement? Harold, a relative, gasped from further down the table. But my mother just laughed and patted my father's arm. "Oh, Jefferson knows we are just being honest. We have always told him that he needs to work twice as hard because of his looks, and he has academically, at least." Audrey snickered behind her napkin. "Maybe you should use some of your graduation money for that nose job Dad always talks about. Get a fresh start before college." I placed my fork down carefully, my hand trembling slightly. I worked really hard to graduate with honors. I said, my voice quieter than I intended. "I thought maybe today you could just be proud of me." My father's face hardened. "Do not be so sensitive. We paid for your education, we clothed you, we fed you. And what do we get? A son who refuses to even try to improve his appearance. Your mother and I have suggested treatments, dermatologists, even surgery, but you are stubborn." "I should not have to change my appearance to earn your love," I replied, finding a courage I did not know I possessed. "My worth is not determined by how I look." My father slammed his glass down. "In this world, appearance is everything. We have given you every opportunity to fix yourself, and you throw it in our faces. Your attitude is embarrassing. So, is your behavior right now?" I countered, surprising even myself. The table fell silent. My father's face turned red with anger, and my mother pursed her lips in that way she did when she was deeply displeased. "Well," my father finally said, his voice cold and controlled, If you think you know better than us, perhaps it is time you make your own way in the world, without our support." "What does that mean?" I asked, though I already knew. "It means if you will not listen to our guidance about your appearance, then you are on your own. No college fund, no living in our house, no car, nothing." "You cannot be serious," I said, looking from my father to my mother, hoping for some intervention. "You would disown me because I will not get cosmetic surgery." My mother simply adjusted her pearl necklace. "Jefferson, we have standards in this family. Your sister met them. You refuse to even try." "You have until tonight to decide," my father declared. "Either agree to the procedures we have suggested or find somewhere else to live." I looked at my sister, hoping for some support, but Audrey merely examined her manicure with feigned interest. "You know they are right, Jeff," she finally said. "You have always been the embarrassing one in family photos." In that moment, something broke inside me, but something else hardened. I stood up, slowly placed my napkin on the table, and looked each of them in the eye. "I will not change my appearance to win your approval," I said firmly. "If that means I am no longer your son, then so be it." My father's face showed no emotion as he replied, "Then we have nothing more to discuss. Your things will be on the front porch by 8 o'clock. Do not come inside." I walked out of that restaurant not knowing where I would sleep that night, but somehow feeling like I could finally breathe. The warm June evening air hit my face as I stumbled out of Thornfield, my graduation gown draped over my arm. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the parking lot as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. I was 18 years old, with no home, no money, and no clear future ahead of me. I sat on a bench outside the restaurant for nearly an hour, my mind racing through options that dwindled with each passing minute. The full weight of my situation pressed down on me until I could barely breathe. I had just been disowned by my family on what should have been one of the happiest days of my life. How was this even possible? With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone and called the only person I knew might help. "Tyler, it is Jefferson. Something terrible happened. My parents, they disowned me. At graduation dinner." My voice cracked as I struggled to maintain composure. Tyler did not hesitate. "Where are you? I am coming to get you." 20 minutes later, his beat-up Honda pulled into the restaurant parking lot. I climbed in, still wearing my graduation clothes, clutching my honor cords and diploma like they were precious artifacts from a life that no longer existed. "You can stay with us tonight," Tyler assured me. "My parents will not mind. We will figure out the next steps tomorrow." That night I slept on an air mattress in Tyler's room, staring at the ceiling fan as it spun in endless circles, much like my thoughts. Around midnight, I received a text from my father. "Your belongings are in boxes on the porch. Anything not collected by morning will be discarded." Tyler and his father helped me retrieve my things the next morning. True to my father's word, several cardboard boxes sat neatly stacked on the front porch. My entire life reduced to containers labeled Jefferson's clothes and Jefferson's books. There was no note, no final message. Just boxes. What struck me hardest was discovering that my laptop camera equipment and other valuable items were missing. When I texted my mother about this, her reply was chilling. "Those were purchased with family money. They remained family property." The tools I needed for both my education and potential career had been taken from me overnight. The reality of my financial situation became brutally clear when I called the college I had planned to attend. Without my parents' financial information and support, my scholarships covered less than half of the tuition. The college fund my grandparents had established for me had apparently been emptied by my parents the morning after the graduation dinner. "I am sorry, Mr. Hayden," the financial aid officer said sympathetically. "But without additional resources, I do not think attendance this fall will be possible. Perhaps you could defer for a year while you sort things out. I could stay with Tyler's family for only so long. Despite their generosity, they lived in a small house and had financial struggles of their own. After 2 weeks, I thanked them for their kindness and moved into my car, a 10-year-old Civic that was thankfully in my name. Living in your car is an education no university can provide. I parked in different spots each night, usually in 24-hour store parking lots, where I would not attract attention. I joined a cheap gym for $10 a month so I could shower daily. I learned which fast food restaurants had the most filling dollar menu items and which coffee shops would let you sit for hours with a single purchase. I found work at ElectroZone, a local electronics store earning just above minimum wage. It was not enough for an apartment in our expensive Connecticut town, but it kept gas in my car and food in my stomach. I stored my remaining possessions in the trunk, developing a system for what I needed each day. One evening, about a month after graduation, I received a text from an unknown number. It was Audrey. Heard you are living in your car now. Guess honor cords. Do not make very good pillows, huh? Mom and Dad are relieved. You are finally out of the house. They are converting your room into a home gym. That text sent me into the darkest period of my life. I sat in my car behind the ElectroZone store and sobbed until I had no tears left. Not just for the loss of my family, but for the realization that they felt relief at my absence. It was one thing to be rejected. It was another to learn they had never really wanted me in the first place. I started having panic attacks at work. My performance suffered, and my manager warned me that if things did not improve, they would have to let me go. I lost weight because I could not afford enough food. I developed insomnia, afraid to sleep too deeply in my car lest someone notice I was living there. Former classmates who came into the store would sometimes recognize me, their eyes widening with a mixture of curiosity and pity. Jefferson, I thought you were going to Pacific Tech in the fall. They would ask clearly, noting my employee uniform and the dark circles under my eyes. Plans changed. I would reply, simply ringing up their purchases. With downcast eyes. I learned later that Audrey had spread the story of my homelessness throughout her social circle, which overlapped with mine. It became a piece of gossip, a cautionary tale. This is what happens when you defy your parents. By August, I hit rock bottom. I had developed a persistent cough from sleeping in my car. My bank account held less than $100, and the college semester was starting without me. One night, parked behind an abandoned gas station, I seriously contemplated giving up. Not on life itself, but on the idea that things could ever improve. Maybe I should just call my parents, agree to whatever cosmetic procedures they wanted, and surrender my autonomy for the security of a home and education. I sat in my car that night, holding my high school diploma in one hand and my phone in the other, my finger hovering over my father's contact information. It would be so easy to give in, to become the person they wanted me to be rather than the person I was. But something stopped me from making that call. Perhaps it was pride or stubbornness, or some deep instinct for self-preservation. Whatever it was, I put the phone down, started my car, and drove to the ElectroZone parking lot to sleep somewhere I felt marginally safer. I did not know it then. But that decision, that refusal to surrender my identity, even at my lowest point, would be the foundation upon which I would rebuild my life. The turning point came on a Tuesday in late September, nearly 4 months after graduation. I was restocking the computer accessories aisle at ElectroZone when an older man in a tweed jacket approached me. He had been a regular customer for weeks, always browsing the computer components section. "Excuse me, young man," he said, his voice carrying a slight Boston accent. "I could not help but notice you seem to know quite a bit about these systems. That advice you gave the customer yesterday about RAM compatibility was spot on. Thank you, sir. I replied, surprised by the compliment. I enjoy working with computers. The name is Daniel Sullivan, he said, extending his hand. I teach computer science at Riverside Community College. You have a good technical mind. Are you in school? There was something about Professor Sullivan's direct but kind manner that broke through my carefully constructed walls. Before I knew it, I was telling him everything, the words tumbling out in the empty aisle of Electrozone between the routers and external hard drives. When I finished, expecting pity or uncomfortable silence, he simply nodded thoughtfully. Well, Jefferson, it sounds like you have been dealt a tough hand. But if there is one thing I have learned in my 63 years, it is that talent finds a way. He pulled out a business card. I have a spare room above my garage. It is nothing fancy, just a bed, desk, and bathroom, but it is yours for $300 a month if you want it. And I strongly suggest you look into our spring semester at Riverside. Tuition is a fraction of what you are going to pay, and there are scholarships for students in your situation. I stared at the card, hardly daring to believe what I was hearing. Why would you help me? You do not even know me. Professor Sullivan adjusted his glasses. Sometimes people just need a chance, son. Someone gave me one when I was younger. Besides that coding competition trophy you mentioned winning, I was one of the judges. I remember your project. It was impressive. 2 days later, I moved into the room above Professor Sullivan's garage. It was small, but clean, with a window overlooking a garden where he grew tomatoes and peppers. For the first time in months, I slept in a real bed, the constant anxiety of car living finally beginning to ebb. Professor Sullivan, or Daniel as he insisted I call him when we were not on campus, became more than a landlord. He was a mentor, offering guidance without being controlling, showing interest without being intrusive. Over dinner once a week, he would share stories from his own life, including his early struggles and how he overcame them. The first step to rebuilding, he told me one evening over homemade pasta, is to stop looking backward. Your parents' choices are about them, not you. Your job now is to focus on what you can build with what you have. With a stable living situation, I was able to save more of my paycheck. I enrolled in night classes at Riverside Community College for the spring semester, focusing on computer science and business courses. Daniel helped me apply for scholarships and grants available to independent students, which covered most of my tuition. For the first time, I was completely responsible for my own education. There were no parents to please, no family expectations to fulfill. I could study what interested me, develop my skills in areas I was passionate about, and set my own goals. It was both terrifying and liberating. During my second semester at Riverside, one of my programming professors assigned a project to create a simple website. While most students created basic personal pages, I built a fully functional site for a fictional business complete with e-commerce capabilities and a content management system. This is far beyond the assignment requirements, my professor commented when I presented it. Have you considered doing this professionally? That comment planted a seed. I began researching local businesses in need of web development services. My first client was a small bakery owned by Mrs. Ramirez, who needed a simple website to display her products and take orders. I built it for just $500 using equipment in the college computer lab, since I still did not have my own. Jefferson, this is beautiful, Mrs. Ramirez exclaimed when I showed her the finished site. My daughter has been telling me I need to get online for years, but all those big companies wanted thousands of dollars. You are a godsend. Word spread quickly among local small business owners. Soon I was working on websites for a flower shop, a pet groomer, and a local handyman. I saved every penny, eventually purchasing a new laptop and software with my earnings. My little business grew steadily, operating out of my room above Daniel's garage. The work was fulfilling, but my emotional recovery was more complicated than my financial one. I still struggled with abandonment issues and a deep-seated fear that I would never be good enough. At Daniel's suggestion, I started seeing a counselor at the community college, Dr. Lisa Chen, who specialized in family trauma. What your parents did was a reflection of their values, not your worth. Dr. Chen told me during one session, "You cannot control their actions, but you can decide what kind of person you want to become despite them." I threw myself into that process of becoming. I joined a photography club at Riverside, reconnecting with the artistic passion my parents had dismissed. I made new friends who knew nothing of my family history and accepted me for who I was. I started jogging with Daniel on weekend mornings, the physical activity helping to clear my mind and strengthen my body. By the end of my first year at Riverside, I had a 3.9 GPA, a growing web development business, and a plan to transfer to a 4-year university. The homeless, desperate graduate sleeping in his car was becoming a distant memory, though the lessons from that dark time stayed with me. One evening, as Daniel and I sat on his porch watching fireflies illuminate the summer darkness, he asked me a question that would shape my path forward. "Jefferson, what do you want most from your life now?" I considered the question carefully before answering. "I want to build something meaningful. Something that is entirely mine that no one can take away from me. And someday, I want to help others who have been in my situation." Daniel nodded approvingly. "Then that is exactly what you should do." With that simple encouragement, I began to envision not just surviving my parents' rejection, but truly thriving in spite of it. By the time I completed my associate degree at Riverside, my web development business had grown enough to pay for a small apartment near the state university where I had been accepted to complete my bachelor's degree. Thanks to my strong academic performance and independent status, I received enough scholarships and grants to cover most of my tuition. Moving into my own apartment was a milestone that marked the beginning of a new chapter. It was nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom unit in a modest building. But it was mine. I remembered the day I signed the lease, how the property manager handed me the keys with a casual gesture that felt monumental to me. That night, I sat on the floor of my empty living room, surrounded by the few boxes containing my possessions, and cried tears of pride and relief. "You did this," I whispered to myself. "No one else. You." At the state university, I thrived academically while continuing to grow my business. I registered it officially as Hayden Web Solutions, creating a proper business entity separate from my personal finances. I designed a professional website and business cards, presenting myself as a legitimate entrepreneur rather than just a student doing side jobs. The transition was not without challenges. In my junior year, I landed a contract with a regional retail chain that wanted to update their entire online presence. It was by far the largest project I had ever tackled, and I was terrified of failing. "I do not know if I can do this," I confessed to Daniel during one of our weekly phone calls. "What if I mess it up? What if they realize I am just a kid with no real experience?" Jefferson, Daniel replied, patiently, "You have built over 30 websites now. You have taken advanced programming courses. You are not just a kid. You are a professional who happens to be young. There is a difference." With Daniel's encouragement, I took on the project, working nights and weekends around my class schedule. When it became clear the workload was too much for one person, I hired 2 fellow computer science students as subcontractors, giving them the opportunity to earn money while gaining experience. The retail chain was thrilled with our work, and that success became a turning point for Hayden Web Solutions. Suddenly, I had referrals to other substantial businesses. I had to make a decision: scale back to focus on my studies, or expand the company to meet the growing demand. I chose growth carefully, balancing my academic responsibilities with business development. I rented a small office space near campus, hired my first full-time employee, and expanded our services to include digital marketing and search engine optimization. By my senior year, Hayden Web Solutions employed 6 people and served clients across 3 states. I was 21 years old running a profitable company while maintaining a 3.8 GPA. From the outside, it looked like a spectacular success story. The reality was more complex. While I was thriving professionally, I still struggled emotionally. I had difficulty forming close relationships, always anticipating rejection. I dated occasionally but would pull away when things became serious, afraid to be vulnerable. I worked obsessively, often sleeping in my office, using business growth as a metric for self-worth. In a mandatory psychology elective course, we studied attachment theory and family dynamics. As the professor described the impact of parental rejection on adult relationship patterns, I felt as though she was speaking directly to me. After class, I approached her about resources for addressing these issues. Success is not just about external achievements, she told me. It is also about internal peace. Have you considered that your drive might be partially fueled by a desire to prove your parents wrong? Her question struck a nerve. I had been so focused on building my business and education that I had neglected the deeper work of healing. With her recommendation, I began seeing a therapist who specialized in family trauma and abandonment issues. Through therapy, I started to untangle the complex emotions surrounding my parents' rejection. I learned to recognize patterns of behavior that stemmed from fear rather than authentic desire. I practiced setting boundaries and allowing myself to be vulnerable in appropriate situations. The emotional work was challenging, but it complemented my professional growth in unexpected ways. As I became more secure in my own worth, I became a better leader for my growing team. I delegated more effectively, trusting others rather than feeling I had to control everything. I made more balanced decisions, considering long-term sustainability rather than just rapid expansion. During this period of growth, I also developed my second business venture. One of our web clients, a local furniture store, mentioned their frustration with existing e-commerce platforms. Inspired by this problem, I began developing a specialized e-commerce solution tailored for small to medium-sized retailers. I named the platform Local Cart and designed it to be more user-friendly and affordable than major competitors, with features specifically benefiting local businesses. I worked on it nights and weekends, pouring my programming knowledge and business experience into creating something unique. When I graduated from State University with honors in computer science and a minor in business administration, Local Cart was ready for its beta launch. I selected 10 businesses from our web design clients to test the platform, offering them free use in exchange for detailed feedback. The graduation ceremony was bittersweet. As I sat among my fellow students, many surrounded by proud parents, I felt the absence of family acutely. But when I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, I spotted Daniel in the audience, standing and applauding enthusiastically. Beside him were several of my employees and friends, holding a banner that read, "Congratulations, boss." That support network, built from connections I had made on my own terms, meant more to me than any family approval could have. These were people who valued me for who I truly was, not for how I looked or what I could change about myself. After graduation, I focused full-time on my businesses. Hayden Web Solutions continued to grow steadily, while Local Cart gained traction in the regional market. I expanded to a larger office space, hired more employees, and began to see myself not just as a service provider, but as a true entrepreneur, building something sustainable. By the time I was 25, 7 years after being disowned, I had built 2 profitable businesses with a combined staff of 23 people. I had purchased my first home, a modern 2-bedroom condo overlooking the river. I had created financial security for myself that no one could take away. What I did not have, and had not had, for 7 years, was any contact with my family. Sometimes I would search for them online, learning bits of information through social media or news articles. My sister Audrey had married a wealthy real estate developer and seemed to be living the socialite life my parents had envisioned. My parents still appeared at community events, though less frequently than in the past. I had built a successful life without them proving that their rejection had not defined me. But there was still a quiet ache that surfaced in unexpected moments, a wondering about what might have been if they had been able to love me as I was. That wondering was about to be answered in a way I never anticipated. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning in my office when the email arrived. I was 29 years old, the owner of 3 successful businesses, having launched a third venture in app development the previous year. My assistant Rachel had flagged the message as important, though the subject line simply read, "Family Matter." The sender's name made my heart skip. Audrey Hayden Richards, my sister, whom I had not spoken to in 11 years. I sat staring at the unopened email for nearly 10 minutes, my coffee growing cold beside my keyboard. What could she possibly want after all this time? Part of me wanted to delete it unread to protect the life and peace I had built. But curiosity won out, and I clicked to open it. Jefferson, I hope this email finds you well. It has been brought to my attention that you have become quite successful in business. I am reaching out because our family is facing some difficulties, and I believe it would be beneficial for us all to reconnect. Father's company has experienced significant financial setbacks, and they have had to downsize considerably. My own situation has changed, as well as I am recently divorced and adjusting to new circumstances. Perhaps we could meet for dinner to discuss family matters. I suggest Thornfield this Friday at 7. Regards, Audrey. No apology. No acknowledgement of the past. Just a sudden interest in reconnecting now that I was successful and they were struggling. The audacity was breathtaking. I forwarded the email to Daniel, who had remained my closest friend and mentor throughout the years. His response came within the hour. You do not owe them anything, Jefferson. Whatever you decide, do it for yourself, not for them. After much consideration, I decided to meet them. Not out of obligation or hope for reconciliation, but to finally close this chapter of my life on my terms. I replied to Audrey with a brief acceptance, then instructed my assistant to clear my Friday evening schedule. Thornfield Restaurant had changed little in the 11 years since that fateful graduation dinner. The same crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling. The same white tablecloths adorned the tables, but I had changed enormously. I arrived early and requested a specific table, the same one where my family had disowned me all those years ago. The symbolism was not lost on the maitre d', who had worked there long enough to remember that night. We are honored to have you here, Mr. Hayden, he said respectfully. Your business accomplishments have been featured in the Regional Business Journal. It is quite impressive. I thanked him and ordered a glass of scotch while I waited. At precisely 7 o'clock, they arrived, my sister, leading the procession with my parents following behind. Audrey had maintained her polished appearance, though stress lines now framed her eyes. My father's hair had grayed completely, and he walked with a slight stoop that had not been there before. My mother looked considerably older, her formerly immaculate appearance showing signs of financial constraint in subtle ways. From her outdated hairstyle to her well-maintained, but no longer designer clothing. What struck me most was that my father glanced right at me without recognition. I had changed, physically growing into my features, developing confidence that transformed how I carried myself. It was only when Audrey approached the table that he realized who I was. Jefferson, Audrey said with a practiced smile. Thank you for meeting us. You look different. I stood to greet them, not with the uncertainty of that 18-year-old boy, but with the confidence of the man I had become. 11 years will do that, I replied evenly. As they took their seats, I noted the flash of surprise in my mother's eyes. Perhaps she had expected me to be eager for their approval, grateful for the chance to reconcile. Instead, she found herself facing a composed, successful adult who no longer needed anything from her. After ordering drinks and appetizers, my father cleared his throat. "Well, Jefferson, it seems you have done well for yourself. Your sister tells us you own some sort of computer business." "3 businesses, actually," I corrected him. Hayden Web Solutions, Local Card E-commerce, and Meridian App Development. We employ 47 people across our ventures and serve clients in 23 states. My mother seemed to brighten at this. "We always knew you were smart, Jefferson. I suppose we just pushed you to be your best in our own way." I took a sip of my scotch, letting the statement hang in the air for a moment. "Is that what you call disowning your son on his graduation day? Pushing him to be his best?" An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Audrey jumped in with forced cheerfulness. "Let us not dwell on the past. We are here now as a family, and that is what matters." "Are we?" I asked. "Because I received an email about financial difficulties, not about missing your son or brother." My father's face hardened momentarily before he composed himself. "Jefferson, perhaps we were hasty in our decisions years ago. But surely you understand we wanted what was best for you. And look how well you turned out. Our approach clearly worked in the end." The audacity of this attempt to take credit for my success after abandoning me left me momentarily speechless. Before I could respond, my mother reached across the table as if to touch my hand, though I subtly moved it away. "What your father is trying to say is that we are proud of you now, Jefferson. The tough love approach we took forced you to become independent and successful. Sometimes, parents have to make difficult decisions for their children's future." I looked at her incredulously. "Tough love. You emptied my college fund, left me homeless, and never once checked if I was even alive for 11 years. That is not tough love, Mother. That is abandonment." Audrey sighed dramatically. "We all make mistakes, Jefferson. Father's company has suffered significant losses in the recession. They may lose the house. And my husband left me with barely anything in the divorce settlement. We are family. Families help each other in difficult times." There it was. The real purpose of this reunion. Not reconciliation, not regret for past actions, but financial need. They had not sought me out when I was sleeping in my car or struggling through community college. They had come now when they needed something from me. "What exactly are you asking for?" I said directly, wanting them to at least have the courage to state their request plainly. My father shifted uncomfortably. "We thought perhaps, given your success, you might consider a family investment. Help us get back on our feet. After all, we gave you life, raised you for 18 years, and then discarded me when I did not meet your standards of physical appearance." I finished for him. "You called me your ugly graduate and threw me away like I was nothing." "You are exaggerating," my mother said dismissively. "You always were so sensitive." I looked at each of them in turn. These people who shared my blood, but who had proven they did not understand the meaning of family. In their eyes, I saw not remorse, but calculation. Not love, but opportunity. They had not changed at all. "How much are you asking for?" I asked bluntly. My father named a figure that would have seemed astronomical to the 18-year-old me, but was now within my means to provide. The number itself did not shock me, but the entitlement behind it did. "And if I give you this money, then what we pretend the last 11 years never happened. We play happy family at holiday gatherings. You introduce me to your friends as your successful son rather than your ugly disappointment. There is no need to be cruel," Jefferson. Audrey sniffed. "We are trying to rebuild bridges here." "No," I said quietly but firmly. "You are trying to build an ATM. There is a difference." The waiter arrived with our appetizers, creating a momentary pause in the conversation. As he served us, I noticed how my parents straightened their posture, putting on the appearance of a pleasant family dinner. The performance was so familiar, it almost made me laugh. Always concerned with how things looked rather than how they were. When the waiter departed, I placed my napkin on my lap and regarded my family with calm clarity. I am going to make you an offer, but it is not the one you came here expecting. They leaned forward slightly, hopeful expressions barely concealing their desperation. I continued, my voice steady and controlled. I will not give you money directly. That would solve nothing in the long term. Instead, I am willing to offer you something more valuable opportunity. I turned to my father first. Dad, I will pay for you and Mom to work with a financial advisor for 1 year. They will help you restructure your debt, create a sustainable budget, and develop a plan for retirement. I will also cover the cost of career counseling if you need to transition to a new field. Before he could protest, I turned to Audrey. For you, I can offer a position at one of my companies if you are willing to start at an appropriate level and work your way up based on merit, not family connection. You would receive the same salary and benefits as any other employee in that role, nothing more, nothing less. Their faces registered shock, then disappointment, then anger in quick succession. My mother was the first to recover. Jefferson, I do not think you understand the severity of our situation. We need immediate financial assistance, not career advice. I understand perfectly, I replied. You need a bailout with no strings attached. But that would not help you in the long run. It would just enable the same patterns that led to this situation. My father's face reddened. This is how you repay us for raising you with lectures and conditions. I owed you nothing the moment you disowned me, I said quietly. Any offer I make now is not about repayment. It is about what I believe is right. Audrey scoffed. A job. You expect me to work as some entry-level nobody at your company. I have a master's degree in art history, which qualifies you for our marketing department, starting in a junior position. You would have the opportunity to advance based on your performance, just like everyone else. This is ridiculous, my father declared, pushing his plate away. We came here to reconnect as a family, and you treat us like charity cases. I could not help but laugh, though there was no joy in it. Reconnect as a family. You did not even recognize me when you walked in. You have not contacted me in 11 years. The only reason you reached out now is because you need money. My mother's eyes narrowed. You have become quite arrogant. Jefferson. Is this how you speak to all your elders? No, I replied. Only to those who have earned this particular tone. Most elders in my life have treated me with respect and kindness. They have earned my reverence in return. I took a sip of water, gathering my thoughts before continuing. When you disowned me, I lost everything. I slept in my car for months. I worked minimum wage jobs. I put myself through community college while building a business from nothing. No one gave me a bailout. I had to create my own opportunities and work harder than everyone else. And look how well it turned out for you, my father interrupted. You should be thanking us. I shook my head, amazed at his persistent self-deception. I succeeded in spite of what you did, not because of it. The credit belongs to people like Daniel Sullivan, who rented me a room when I had nowhere to go, to professors who believed in my potential, to clients who trusted a young entrepreneur with their business needs, to friends who supported me when I doubted myself. I paused, meeting each of their gazes directly. Those people are my real family. They earned that title through actions, not blood. Audrey stood abruptly. I should have known this was a waste of time. Come on, mother, father. Jefferson clearly thinks he is too good for us now. My mother hesitated, looking between my sister and me. For a brief moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something like regret in her eyes. But it vanished quickly as she rose to join my sister. Jefferson. My father said stiffly, "You may think you have won something here, but one day you will regret turning your back on family." I remained seated, perfectly calm. I am not turning my back on family, Dad. I already have a family, one I built myself. I am simply declining to finance people who abandoned me when I needed them most. They left without another word, my father throwing down his napkin, my mother avoiding eye contact, my sister storming ahead of them. I watched them go, feeling not anger or satisfaction, but a profound sense of closure. I stayed at the table, finishing my meal alone. The matron approached cautiously. "Is everything all right, Mr. Hayden?" "Yes," I replied, surprising myself with how true it felt. Everything is finally all right. That night I called Daniel and told him everything that had happened. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern evident in his voice. "I am better than okay," I answered truthfully. For years, part of me wondered if I was somehow wrong for not changing myself to meet their expectations. Today, seeing them again, I finally understood that the problem was never me. "They have not changed at all, Daniel." "But I have." "You have indeed," he agreed warmly. "I am proud of you, son. Not just for your success, but for the man you have become." Those words from someone who had earned the right to say them meant everything. In the weeks following that dinner, I reflected deeply on my journey. I realized that being disowned, as painful as it was, had forced me to discover my true self. Without the constant pressure to be someone I was not, I had found freedom to become the person I was meant to be. I channeled that realization into action. I established a foundation that provided scholarships for students who had been cut off financially by their families. I created a mentorship program, connecting homeless youth with successful professionals. I began speaking at colleges about resilience and self-determination. Through helping others who faced similar rejection, I found healing for my own wounds. Each student we helped through school, each young entrepreneur we guided toward independence, represented a victory, not just for them, but for the 18-year-old boy who had once slept in his car, uncertain if he would ever find his way. Today, 11 years after that fateful graduation dinner, I no longer define myself by what I lost. Instead, I celebrate what I have built: businesses that employ dozens of people, a foundation that changes lives, and most importantly, a chosen family of friends and colleagues who value authenticity over appearance. I have learned that true family is not determined by blood, but by love and respect. That success is not measured by wealth alone, but by the impact you have on others. That sometimes the people who should love you unconditionally are incapable of doing so, and that is their loss, not yours. Most importantly, I have learned that we all have the power to rewrite our stories. Being disowned did not have to be the end of my story, just as it does not have to be the end of yours. It can be the beginning of something authentic, something true to who you really are. If you have ever felt rejected, discarded, or not good enough, know this: you are worthy exactly as you are. Your worth is not determined by others' limitations, and you have the strength within you to build a life that reflects your true value, even when those who should see it most clearly fail to recognize it. What about you? Have you ever had to rebuild your life after rejection or abandonment? How did you find the strength to move forward? Share your story in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe if this resonated with you. Each of our journeys is unique, but in sharing them, we remind each other that we are never truly alone. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember, sometimes being disowned creates the space for you to truly own yourself.